Hello, I'm Dave Tosch, Executive Director, Wenatchee Valley Senior Activity Center, and today I'm with Dr. Kjobech, who is a longtime Valley resident and practiced here in the Valley for a number of years. He's also the founder and longtime chairman of the board of Wellness Place. I think a lot of folks in the community are aware of Wellness Place, and I'd kind of like to introduce him with some of the things that he's been involved with the community, primarily Wellness Place, and just speak a little bit about what the organization has done for the community.
My turn?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Wellness Place was started in 2003, March of 2003, and has been in about 4 or 5 different homes, but now is currently up near Colonial Vista, Prestige, the Prestige organization up there, and it is primarily set up to help people who have malignancies and to help their family. Of the people who are having malignancies. And our help is basic. We want people to come in the door if they have needs. And, we'll try somewhat to help them understand what's going on, but that's mainly their doctor's business. But then food, clothing, wigs, mammograms, or rather, breast models and things like that are all provided. And we send people to Seattle when they need to see other specialists and have helped pay for some of that as well if they're in. As a matter of fact, if somebody has a need and they come in to talk to us, we'll find a way to help.
Apparently, Carl Campbell has had a lot of influence and assisted greatly with Wellness Place. Of course, Carl has just recently passed on. He's also had a big influence here at the Senior Center. You want to just say a few words about what Carl was able to do for your organization?
Well, it's not just our organization, as you've mentioned, but I just want to say he's one of the really quality people who came to this community, developed a large business himself, and never forgot where he is from, nor forgot to help the people from his area. We had been in one of his buildings with Wellness Place, but for some reason or another we left and went into another place that was not nearly as satisfactory. And one day I was out riding my bike and I got a phone call from my wife that I needed to go to see Mr. Campbell right away. And so he determined that the building that we had been using he thought should be used by Wellness Place. And so he sold it to us for, a relative pittance, but I think is wise in saying to the organization, if you're really serious, you need to be paying something to make it real.
I know that I, over the time that I've been here, have worked with a lot of nonprofits, and I think it's important for us here to do that because our senior membership is involved in a lot of different activities and organizations.
Sure. Yeah.
I know that you have a major fundraiser every year.
That's right.
And I think there's one coming up here.
Well, it happened. Because of COVID, like everything else, ours was virtual. And we made almost as much money this year as we did with a much more involved live event last year. And of course, that's all of it is due to Julie, our chief, who is running the organization now. She's just super. Julie Lindholm.
Yeah, I know that we went to a gala several years ago, and I think it was a Roaring Twenties theme or something like that with a big band down at Pybus after Pybus had just opened up, and it was a great event. And I know that when I looked out in the audience, I recognized about half the faces were people that I knew from here, and I just think that's a neat thing that within the community. What really makes the community great is all this interaction among organizations.
And I'm in this room, and it's so sad that I'm in this room because it's so quiet. And normally when I'd come in here, there are people having coffee, including me, if I drank coffee, down there at the end. And there are people exercising over here, and there are people crocheting here and talking to one another. And you know, there are 150 people in this room, and now we can't do that all. So we're just digging, trying to figure out how to fill those holes.
Yeah, it's challenging times, and for our viewers, you may see the boxes in our background here stacked up on the dance floor. Normally we would have dances and not be able to use this room or use this space for what we're doing right now.
Yep.
But we're trying to make use of what we do have, and we're spreading things out, and part of that is those boxes are all of the Christmas items that we're bringing in right now for our Christmas cottage that'll be coming out in the next month or so. And so, you know, what do they say? Make lemonade out of squeezed lemons? You're going to have to edit that one. But anyway, back to our conversation, I really admire you in a number of ways because, you know, you're a Chelan goat. I know a little bit about the Chelan goats. I'm an old bulldog, and have very fond memories about sports, Cashmere and Chelan. But you've stayed with a lot of sports and exercise, and I know that you're an avid bicyclist. Do you want to talk just a little bit about what you're doing day to day?
Well, you know, I can talk about myself, but I can kind of tie it in with what I think is good for everyone. You know, is to stay with activity and to, you know, and it is to maintain those things as you go along. We all get to places in our life, going to school and so on, that you can't do the exercise. But if you can possibly get yourself to continue on with it, you know, later on in your life, it's just so good for you. And it doesn't have to be anything massive. I mean, if you've got a couple of weights at home and can walk, if you're up walking, you're doing yourself some good, you know, and if you can do it on a regular basis, and if you've got somebody to do it with. As far as what I do, well, you know, it's kind of changed over the years. I used to like to backcountry ski. I went on 30 trips up to Canada, and they'd drop us into a hut, and we'd ski out of there, walking up and down the hills, but that's passed. And I like bicycling, always have, and I guess I probably always will. I've gone off the deep end, though. I have a bike that has an electric motor on it now, which makes it considerably easier. But I've been out the last 3 days, and I have a list in my book of about 20 people that I call. And sometimes we'll get 14 or 15 of them together. This morning it was only 5, but it was all the good ones.
So there's some socializing that goes on with all that, as well as good exercise.
Yeah, we try to stay 6 feet apart from each other, and when you're on the bike, there isn't much risk, so you can find things to do. And I like to cross country ski. I hope to do some of that this winter too. That I'm not very good at it, but you know, I can make my way around the course.
Well, I think during this time when everybody is somewhat isolated socially, anything you can do. Well, one, just getting out and getting exercise, yes, even if it's on your own, is good for you. But for mental health and wellness, I think that doing things with others is a good thing, and that's part of what we're trying to promote with this programming on TV. Is there are ideas out there, and we're trying to offer up some of those ideas as to how you can stay busy while we are closed here, and we don't want to think that people are going to stay isolated just because of the COVID. There are options, and so and yours is the bicycling and some of the winter sports that you participate in.
And I ran into somebody you know, a lot of people do know, is Ed Farah the other day.
Yeah.
And Ed, of course, is really handicapped as far as getting out and bicycling, but he does it regularly. And I said, "You look good." And he said, "Yeah." He says, "You know, I'm never more than one bike ride away from a better attitude." And I thought, I'm never going to forget that one. I mean, he's one of those real guys, you know, and that was a real idea that he had.
Yeah, I don't ride bikes right at the moment for a lot of reasons, but I do walk the trail.
Yeah.
And I can tell you about more than half the time he passes me by on his app. I don't know what they call that. It's a bike, and he's He's
got a battery too, though.
He's got a battery too, and he usually has 3 or 4 people with him, and they're
That's
going.
called the B Squad. The guys that take him out. I could give you their names, but I won't.
But it does speak volumes for you can feel sorry for yourself and complain and sit home and watch whatever it is. We hope you're watching NCWLIFE though. Obviously, we want you to do that. But after you're done with that, get out. Enjoy the beautiful valley that we have here. I mean, there are a lot of positive things that we have to celebrate in this valley. Obviously, Dr. Kjobech has lived in the valley for a number of years and is a strong testament to what we have and taking advantage of it. Do you do any of the trails here locally, or just the bike?
Oh, I mountain bike too. Yesterday I was up on Horse Lake Road, and I'm not very good at that, so I was going slowly and taking it easy. I'm not much of a hiker. I grew up at Lake Chelan, and I was a water person, not a climbing person. A lot of my friends would be going to this lake or that lake, and we're going to climb up and do it, and I was always the one that didn't go, so it's my excuse. I'll stick to it.
Well, we've already spoke a little bit about you growing up in Chelan, being a mountain goat, and I always have to get to that because those are very fond memories of mine growing up in Kashmir and competing in sports with Chelan. That was a big rival, and so I always resort back to that. But you graduated high school in Chelan, and then you went off to medical school. Well, I'm sure you attended a whole bunch of classes before you got to medical school. You want to talk just a little bit about that background and then how you came back to the Wenatchee Valley to practice?
Well, I was in Chelan, and after my senior year, went to the University of Washington undergraduate. And after 3 years, I guess, I got to go to medical school back at Northwestern, and then got a couple of degrees from Northwestern, both for undergraduate and graduate. And then after that, I ended up taking some more training, and it was over in Seattle at the University of Washington, and finally working in hematology and to a certain extent in oncology over at the University of Washington. And then got out and went, the next thing I guess was in the service. And then while I was in the service, I got to talking about where I wanted to practice, and some of my friends who were over at the University of Washington at that time, Dave Jakes, Bill McKee, Chris Stoller, some others I'm going to forget, and they're going to wonder why. And at any rate, they came over here and got jobs. And Jerry Gibbons was the one that really recruited us too. He was over there. At any rate, and they came over, and so 2 years later, I got out of the service, and I was offered a job here, and came back. And that was at a time I was about the 26th physician, and I think they've hired 800 or 600, something like that by now. But then I came back. We got into the new building right away. I was in the new building, and the rest of it was history. That I stuck around there for about 32 years, and did my job in internal medicine and hematology, and just enjoyed it, and found wonderful people working there, as well as the doctors that I worked with. I just really enjoyed it. Plus, I like people, and as long as you got people in your office and you can talk, you don't have to talk about their medical problems the whole time. So it makes it very enjoyable too.
So were you still practicing when you got the wellness place going?
No, I was thinking about the last year or so, and when I retired, I had boards made up, just information boards about what I wanted to do, and tried to get some money out of my cohort to start doing that. And then Richard Tucker, who was the infectious disease doctor, had an organization that he was running, and had a part-time, half-time director for it. So he said, I'll pay for her as your director full-time out of his money that he had. And that was the beginning of it. And we've had something like 5 or 6 directors since then. And people have always said, well, that's a good idea. I don't know why we didn't do it before. And I think people have been very open to us continuing to provide these services to people who have malignancies, and to, just try to help people. And the people that we've had work for us as directors, and the ones who've talked to people who've come in the door, I don't know how we've been so blessed. I'd go over all their names, but I can't. But I just want to say how warm and wonderful they've been, and the people who have donated us too. Some people have just come forward and given us chunks of money to help us do those things.
Yeah, I'm amazed at how that organization has really helped people. I hear. Well, obviously, got a lot of seniors here that have had cancer and beaten cancer, and very proud of what they've been able to accomplish. And Wellness Place typically comes up in the conversation. So obviously, it's another one of those strong organizations in our valley that's done so much for people.
You know how I feel about these organizations. Some of them get going and they kind of lose their way. They don't really provide all of the service they can. And my hope is we'll continue to do it in a way that people will still want us around. And if indeed it works out that we're not, then I think we should be gone. Yeah. Because there's obviously someone else with a better idea who should be doing something different.
I know that you do travel a little bit, but I think you kind of like it here in the valley, and I don't know. Do you leave very often? Do you have a reason to leave very often to visit other family members, or what?
Our family, we had 2 boys, and they're both married, and we have like 5 grandkids and so on. But we're split between Wenatchee and Bend, and 2 places that are very similar, and so we see each other. And during the summer, my oldest son, who's in Bend, comes up and stays at Lake Chelan with us during a good part of the time. So we just don't do much traveling. So our traveling, I've been to Europe once, and I've been to South America once, and my wife doesn't particularly like to travel. She really doesn't. I might do a little bit more, but Helen, really likes what she does here, and she's busy, and so that's kind of the way that it's been, but. Like the book came out recently that some fellow up at Lake Chelan wrote about the best lake in the world, Lake Chelan, and what I think of this area and the friends that I have here, and I can be very happy around here. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
I would include myself in that category. Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't travel.
Okay.
No. Well, unless I go to visit kids, family.
Yes.
Yeah. That's about the only thing. I have to ask you this. I've seen you run around town in this little BMW 2002. Is that like a mid-70s version model?
Oh, okay. Now
Can you tell me a little bit about
this
that car?
could be an hour-long program, you're aware. But BMW wasn't doing too well. They were kind of making Baroque old cars up until they got started on this model. And this particular series, it was the 2000 and the 2002 and the 1600, got started right during the 60s, and it saved their neck. People were driving around in their Izettas, which were little cars that had a door that opened in the front. They were awful. And so they got this stuff. I bought one back in 1968 when I was in the service down in Barstow, California, and sold it after I got back up here. But I bought this one 30 years ago from a patient. She said, my husband has his car he's ready to sell. He'd had it 20, I've had it 30, so it's 50 years old. It's original paint, the original orange paint on it. You can't miss it if you see me going around town, whistle or honk or something like that. But it is great fun, and it is said to be the car that saved BMW. They were going down the tank.
Well, that's something we have in common, because when I was in the service in Germany, I had a BMW 2002. And so when I saw that car, I didn't know it was you, actually. I saw you driving downtown, and then I saw you later on with that car. I thought, oh, okay, now I know a little bit more about Dr. Carl.
Yes.
But those are great cars, and And I'll never forget, I had my sponsor, another lieutenant, pick me up at the airport at Frankfurt and drove me to Nuremberg on the Autobahn. My first experience on the Autobahn in a BMW 2002. What a ride.
Going 100 miles an hour.
Oh, yeah, well over 100, yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun, memorable, and then I had to have one. So, but I haven't had one since. That's okay. That's another story. Maybe, well, I don't know.
Maybe one of these days I'll bring it down to use for a day or two.
Let me borrow it. Yeah.
Okay. You got it.
All right. You have been involved in several other organizations in the community, and I know we had talked several years ago about a prostate support group, and that you were heavily involved with. And there is still a prostate support group that's meeting here, well, when we're open, they meet here once a month. And then there's Our House, also another nonprofit in the community. Would you mind touching on those organizations a little bit?
Well, let me start out with Our House. Our House started with Betsy Tontini, who was a chemotherapy room nurse down at the Wenatchee Valley Clinic, and her husband, Nevio Tontini, was also involved too. And she started this with the idea that it would be a place where patients who came down for treatment during a week could stay at that building. And radiation therapy particularly is often given 5 days, Monday through Friday, and then off. And that's basically what their job is now, is to be open for wherever people may be from, to provide them with a room. And I'm not sure whether there are charges involved or not, but I'm sure it's very reasonable. And they're a great group. I actually was kind of interested to see if I could be involved with them also, along with Wellness Place, but it didn't work out that way, so we've turned out to be two different organizations. But I can't say enough good things for the people who run Our House, and the stability that it's provided for people, and the help that it's given. They're very good, yeah. Then you mentioned prostate cancer. Well, since I retired with Wellness Place, I thought, well, maybe we really should have a prostate cancer support group, because, I mean, that's such a constant new diagnosis for men in our area. And so I tried it, and we had a few meetings here, and I didn't do a very good job, and it didn't carry on. But there's a prostate cancer support group that have been centered up in Leavenworth, and I am so sorry that I don't remember the name of the doctor who started it, but he's since moved. But they're still seeing people. They're not meeting now, but I think they're starting to have some Zoom meetings. So that if someone's new with prostate cancer and would like to get involved, they've had people talk. They've had good discussions. It's really basic. I've heard the most basic kinds of questions asked about what's going to happen to someone with prostate cancer, and they're doing a great job. And I just happen to have the people who are running it now are Blake Gregory, and John Shull. And I'd like to leave you with Blake Gregory's phone number, 509-860-5710. So if someone would like to join a group like that, I'm sure they're becoming active again, and I will do what I can with them as well. And once again, his number was area code 509-860-5710. And to have a group that you can sit down with like that, and carcinoma of the prostate, was really pretty simple when I first started. As far as the treatments at the time, having surgery, et cetera, and now it's become really complicated, and there's an awful lot of knowledge that people can get tuned in with, and they really need the right kind of doctor to get that done. So this is Mr. Gregory and Mr. Shull are good people to contact to get.
Yeah, Blake's done a tremendous job with that group, and they were meeting here regularly until we closed, and it's kind of sad, but he has kept a handle on it. He's apparently doing the Zoom meetings, and yeah, please give him a call if you've got some questions, and I'm sure he'll get back to you. Yeah. In wrapping up our conversation today, I think everybody would like your thoughts as a medical professional. Although you're retired, I'm sure you stay up with what's going on. Maybe you can give us some of your thoughts about this pandemic and where we might be headed.
And never have I had such a chance to look bad. I really am not an expert on COVID. I have some feelings, and I'll go into those too. But yeah, you know, people like Malcolm Butler, who you had on, who is with the Chelan Douglas Health Department, I think, and also works, I think, with CVCH.
Columbia Valley Community Health. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He is an expert.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's really good. And if you have some specific questions. Okay, so with that said, I'll get very general and try to use wisdom instead of facts. How's that as a way? I think it's obvious it's a threat. There have been the statistics change, but there have been thousands and thousands of deaths from it, and I think it's something we all have to think about and listen to, and I think we have to listen to the people who have facts and do some of the things that they suggest. It's so early in what is, let's face it, it's a new disease. It's not even a year old. How can everybody know everything about it? How can everybody know the best way to take care of people? They're getting very good at getting people well, but what they say works changes all the time. I even saw one the other day that just drove me up the wall, that you could get COVID from your iPad or your telephone. And all I can say is, when someone puts a fact like that online and doesn't provide any online or on the radio or TV, and then doesn't provide any facts on it, I think what you do is you put that in the back of your mind, and in about 2 or 3 months, you hope that something else will come out that will either define it or not define it. But I think COVID's going to be with us for a while. I don't see anything that says it's going to go away by itself. I think the deaths are just tragic. I think they're going to continue to happen. I think they're going to continue to be more in older people. I think younger people are going to do better with it. I'm just happy as a clam that Paul Gordon and our schools here are getting started and getting the youngest ones into school part-time, and of course we're going to have to watch and see what happens as far as the number of them get sick. But I just think it's wonderful, because I think that the social activities and learning it in that age group, I don't think we know what we're losing. How about the rest of us? Well, if you're 80 like I am, you know that if you get it, you're going to be sicker, so maybe you ought to listen a little bit better. What things, you know it's going to come probably from somebody else that you're going to get it. So the more you spread yourself out when you're around people, the more that you use masks, and I believe in them. I don't know how you can not believe in them totally, I think I think those things are very important. And I think you have to realize that whenever you meet with somebody that you haven't been around, whether they're family or others, they could conceivably be carrying the virus, and there are some things that you can do about thinking about that. But I really think it's tough for people, particularly people who are just stuck in their own apartment, and I know a couple of them that don't do anything, and they need to have some people they can talk to, get them on the phone, get out and walk with them, do things like that. Take care of yourself. I don't know anything more specific than that I can say. Maybe you've got some other topics that on that you'd have a question about.
No, not necessarily. I think we're always looking for people's thoughts on the matter, that might have a background that would have an appreciation for what we're dealing with. I know there's a lot of misunderstanding, misinformation, a lot of that going through our community and the nation.
Sure.
Obviously, at the Senior Center, the reason we're closed is because we have a population that's vulnerable to this virus, and it's really difficult to kind of picture what's going to allow us to get back together again and not have to be concerned about masks and distancing and all those things. We have 50 different groups coming here on a weekly basis, and multiple doors, entryways and exitways, and it's hard for us to imagine how we can keep a handle on all that, and even try to ration it out, or minimize the number of people that are able to come. So yes, we have a lot on our plate right now.
You do.
And
You do.
but we'll get through it, just like we do with everything else. We will get through it, and we will be reopened again at some point.